What's going on, guys? Greg here with Buy or Build. After a long streak of owning many Japanese cars over the past year and a half, I think it's been 8 Japanese cars in a row, hence my license plate on the Sequoia, only JDMs, which originally came from my FD RX7. I actually scored the world's cheapest version of this car with a clean title, accident-free, and it's actually been on Marketplace for a couple months now, but I was able to negotiate him down, and I'm gonna show you guys the car in just a second and show you the car in its raw form, exactly how I picked it up, show you how I was able to negotiate such a good price on this car, and go for a drive and see what my future plans are. So without further ado, welcome home, my all-new, let's try that again, my all-new 2018 Audi RS3. This car is a clean title, accident-free, and I picked it up for just over $30,000. This makes it the cheapest clean title RS3 in the whole country at the time that I bought it. I did see one just pop up for sale for $30,000 with rebuilt title and 100,000 miles. So I think I scored big time, and this car is not stock. There are so many modifications to this, but it actually is pretty tame when you want it to be. And as soon as you flip it into sport mode, this thing wakes up and turns into an absolute beast. So you guys are probably wondering, why an Audi RS3? Well, 5 years ago, I think it was, actually, it's been longer, 7 years ago when I picked up my Audi S4, and I'm a big Audi fan. I've had R8s, S4s, and A4s, and I think that's it. This is my first 3 Series Audi, first RS3 to make it special, but I always loved the way that the DAZA engines sound, the inline 5, 2.5 liter. It's definitely one of Audi's most iconic sounding engines, and people build the heck out of these cars. They make 1,000+ horsepower. They are drag racing them. They're doing roll racing. Like, these cars break records when it comes to competitive motorsports. And I don't really plan on ever building a car into a 1,400 horsepower animal like one stock did. You can do a lot to these cars. There's a lot of potential. The aftermarket is just out of this world. And I'm really lucky because this car actually came with a bunch of goodies. It's a Unitronic Stage 2 ECU and TCU. So it's got like some burbles when you're in the sport mode. The exhaust valve dynamics opens when you put it into dynamic mode. So I should have bought this instead of the S4 at the time. I probably would have had so much more fun, and the S4 depreciated like crazy compared to the RS3. These have held their value phenomenally well. Even the brand new ones, they're selling at sticker price when they're used with 10,000 miles. So these cars just hold their value so well. They're a pretty good investment if you want to get into a used performance vehicle. And you can daily drive it. It's got 4 seats, fits 4 adults, and it's pretty compact, being it's a A3. So you can take it to the city and park into some pretty tight spots. And coming from a Civic and other smaller Japanese cars, like, this is actually a perfect size for me. So when we come to the side of the car, you can see that the paint is in pretty rough shape. It's not like it's rusting away or anything, but you can tell that this car has been improperly washed over the years, and being that it's black does not help its case whatsoever, but it does need a full paint correction, and you can kind of see like that there's a lot of swirls and just improper washing, but it's not really that bad. There is like a small touch-up paint line right there. Again, not a huge deal. If I do end up keeping this car, or if I sell it to one of my clients who's actually interested in the car, we will probably end up doing a color change, a DAZA wrap on it, or maybe even a 3M, since the new ones are actually really nice. You could see that it's still very dirty. I didn't clean this car. I'm showing you exactly how I bought it, and in the same condition that I picked it up. but I didn't do anything to it. I've had it only for a couple days, just trying to get accustomed to the car before I really make a review on it. But you could see on the exterior, we have these stock wheels from the RS3. It's got some winter tires on there right now, the Continentals, and they actually do really well under some serious driving. And it's still technically winter time. It's been like 30 degrees this week, so it was kind of nice to have the winters. This is not curb rash. It's kind of just like, I don't know, that grease, the lubricant that they use to mount the tires. So one of the negotiating points for this car, other than it being listed for 2 months, is the brakes. It needs front rotors and pads. You can see that there is actually a pretty decent lip on the rotor, but when I test drove the car, it did not have any vibrations or anything like that through the pedal, and it didn't steer left or right under acceleration and braking. The rear rotors and pads also need to be done. These are a lot cheaper. Rear rotors you can get for about $40. Pads probably the same thing. On the front, you're looking at about $1,000 for pads and rotors, and then also to do a full brake flush. Show you guys the inside of the car. It's actually in really good shape. However, it does have really dark tints on the driver's side, and I did realize, and you can kind of see it here, it's double tinted. So on the passenger side, it's got about 20%, and then on the driver's side, it has 20%, and then they put like another even darker tint on top of it. So I have to get the tints removed, and on the back windshield, I don't know how this works, but the guy's old company logo is like stained into the tint. So figure about $150 to redo the driver's windows and maybe another $180 to do the rear, and that's including removing the old tint. The driver's side needs to be done. Passenger side, we can leave it as is. Coming into the front of the car, you know, the seats are in actually really good shape. There's no rips, no tears. It's not a smoker's car, so I don't have to worry about that. It comes with the all-weather RS3 floor mats, which is nice. You can see we got 74K on the clock. No other modifications other than a little gauge here. I think this is a P3 gauge, so it plugs into the OBD2, gives you all your metrics like coolant temperature, 0 to 60, AFRs, boost, and all the good stuff. It has these paddle extensions in red. Not a huge fan of them. I'll probably take them off and put like black ones on. I had the same ones on the R8 in black, and they were more subtle. It's not too bad. It kind of goes with the whole theme of the red black stitching. On the center console, we have this carbon fiber overlay. And this one there, that carbon fiber, that kind of looks OEM, so I think that is fine. But other than that, the interior is completely original. I have my dog in here, so there's a little bit of fur that didn't come with the car. We got this carbon fiber little deck lid here, which isn't peeling or anything, so I'll probably leave that. And this is not a black optics package car. It's also not a virtual cockpit car. So you notice it had the older Audi cockpit, which was a downside, so that was another negotiating point. That's a really nice package to have, is the virtual cockpit. So we kind of lose some value there. The carbon fiber on these mirrors, so you could see that it's fading right here. I think these are just caps that you can pop off and put new ones on, but there's no curb rash on any of the wheels, which is awesome because the roads here in New York are insanely bad right now. And no front lip or anything, but it is all in really good condition. And I did not want a black one, but we have to, you know, work with what we got, cheapest RS3 in the country. But it doesn't have the black optics, so it's kind of nice to like have this silver trim on the front, so it gives it some contrast. So you can see we got some really nice goodies. Here in the front, we have a aluminum CTS front mount intercooler, a lot thicker than stock. We also have the full CTS turbo intake, and this is like a massive intake. I would say this is probably, what, a 5-inch intake. Also have a 034 Motorsport catch can for capturing any oils that might go into your intake, which you don't want. Blow by is bad. All the mods are really on the bottom. We have APR mid pipe, we have a Unitronic catless downpipe to a stock catback exhaust. In the front we also have some upgraded motor mounts and transmission mounts, because that is another common issue or a common upgrade to do when you start making power. So you guys can see how loud this thing is, even on the warm start. You have to open the valves in dynamic mode for it to sound good when you rev it. Gauge I was showing, this is coolant temp. We also have speedometer, battery voltage, shift light, intake temperatures, EGTs, ignition timing, throttle position, AFR, 0 to 60, and boost gauge. I think that's everything. So I also noticed that there's no coolant temp in the factory cluster, which is really weird for, you would imagine, like a performance oriented car. Let's go ahead and take it for a drive and see what it's all about. Let's have at it. It's a beautiful but cold day, and we're testing out the DJI gimbal. I'm gonna point it down a little bit. There we go. Ooh, I love that. Let's go for a drive. So we'll start off just in drive, so you guys can see how like tame it is when we're just going around. So the exhaust valve is closed right now. It sounds absolutely terrible. I'm not a big fan of how it sounds with the valves closed. So the other issue that I noticed, you may or may not hear it, but there's like a slight clunking coming from the front right, and I think the rear right suspension. It's probably the top mounts on the struts. Let's put it in sport mode. We're in dynamic, so we can enjoy this nice little back roads. It's pretty wild. And this is actually the hardest I pushed the car since I've owned it. This car is a lot of fun. So another reason why I love the RS3 so much is how similar it sounds to the R8. Like it's basically half the R8 engine. It's an inline 5, it's 2.5 liters, so it's very close to the 5 and the 5.2 liter R8. It sounds more like the newer 5.2 that I had in my 17. Lovely sound, and it's boosted, so like we have the turbo noises on top of the incredible sounding DAZA engine. The only thing I hate about this car, under like 3,600 RPM, when you're just cruising around town or just going through the RPMs kind of slowly, it doesn't all sound that good. Like it has like a cam, I think the cam profile changes, like basically hits VTEC, you know, in Honda terms, where it changes the tone of the exhaust. It goes from like this gargly, like weird sound, like kind of like a boxer engine sound, but then as soon as you hit 3,500-ish, it like opens up and it sounds like R8 again. It goes from a very rough sounding exhaust tone to like very smooth. and I think it's the cam, just like the way, you know, to save gas and whatnot. I could be entirely wrong, but that's what I think it is. Usually you don't have changes in cam unless you want, you know, performance, and at the lower RPMs you have better MPGs and whatnot. You hear it? It went, but like you don't have to be on throttle hard for it to activate. So I talked to my buddy Jake about it. He says it has something to do with like the wastegate, and the wastegate changes position at a certain RPM. I don't know if that's true or not, because even if you're not in boost, like the wastegate shouldn't be opening or closing at a certain RPM. I don't know, maybe it is, but it could be also in the tune from Unitronic, like an angry 4-cylinder, and then you got angry 5-cylinder. They are so much fun. I don't know what I'm gonna do to this. If I end up selling it, we're gonna do all the modifications to the car for the client, so it's gonna stay within the family, which is awesome. But if I end up keeping it, you know, I'm probably gonna do at least full paint correction next week with Ludensoul. We're gonna get the tints done, new summer tires for sure, and maybe even a designated wheel for the track. We're looking at New Speed and maybe BC Forged and Wed Sport, I think, are really the only options for this car. There's not a lot of wheel options for this chassis, which is like crazy. In size, you want to go 18, 9.5 plus 45, 5x112, and you could probably run like a 255 40 18 tire, I would imagine, with a little bit of rubbing if you don't have it aligned properly. But I would love to track this car. Definitely got to get the suspension clunking resolved, but these seats too, they're not track seats. I did like a slower pull there, like half throttle, just so you can get a better enjoyment for the sound of this DAZA engine. It sounds freaking incredible. I feel like the RPMs or the gears are almost a little too short because you can just go through gears so quickly, but that's probably to keep it a great, you know, spirited driving back roads kind of car, and even for the track that's good, so you're always in the power band. But once you're making way more horsepower, I feel like you do have to change the gear ratios a little bit. And I'm usually not a huge fan of burble tunes, but I think the level of the burbles on this is like perfect, because it's not like gunshots. It's kind of just like an angry, you know, bop, 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 which only lasts for a couple seconds. I love when it does it on the startups, like it goes pop, pop, pop. Like that sounds so sick. That's very German. You know, all the new Porsches do it from factory, like it's an OEM tune. A lot of Italian cars absolutely do that, and probably most of, you know, Audis, Mercedes, and BMW does that too. If you enjoyed the video, we'll hopefully keep this around for a little bit more time and we can do some more content with it. But I'm really excited to be back in a car, because if you guys didn't know, I sold the Civic, I sold the Evo, and the Evo is like a whole different story. So I needed a new daily. I was driving the Sequoia for like a week, and then I had to do ball joints and tie rods, so I really had no car for a few days, honestly. And the NSX, obviously, you guys know, is not fully up and running. It needs to be tuned, and I actually made some good headway on that yesterday. So I would say maybe 2-3 weeks from now, we should be in some pretty good shape with the NSX, and this car will have some progress too with it. You know, it's almost springtime. It's my favorite time of the year because it's like we're coming out of like depressing winter, and we're finally able to do all the activities that we wanted to do. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.